On the morning of June 7th, 1992, East Delmar Street looked like any other suburban block at the start of a summer Sunday. The brick house at number 1717 was quiet. In the driveway, the cars belonging to the women who lived there sat exactly where they had been parked the night before. To any passerby, it was a picture of complete, ordinary stillness. That stillness was broken when a group of friends arrived to pick up the residents for a planned trip to a local water park. When their knocks went unanswered, they found the front door unlocked and stepped inside. The house wasn't empty, but the people were missing. On the table sat 3 purses containing the keys and identification of every woman inside. A small Yorkshire Terrier named Cinnamon was the only living thing they found, running through the rooms in a state of visible distress. The scene was confusing because of what wasn't there. There were no signs of a struggle. No furniture was overturned, no windows were broken, and there was no blood found anywhere in the bedrooms or the common areas. It appeared as if the 3 women had simply stepped out of their lives in the middle of a sentence, leaving their cars, their money, and their pet behind. Investigators usually look for the physical story told by a crime scene, the evidence of a door being kicked in or a struggle across a room. In this house, they were met with an absolute void. 3 people had vanished, and they had done so from a home that looked exactly as it did when they were still safely inside it. After hours of searching, police finally located one detail that didn't fit the pristine environment. Outside on the front porch, the glass globe that protected the light fixture had been shattered. The fragments of glass were scattered across the concrete near the front door. This shattered globe became a focal point, but it offered no clear answers. Authorities couldn't determine if the glass broke during an abduction or if it was an unrelated accident that had happened days earlier. Because there were no other signs of entry, this single pile of glass remained the only physical anomaly at the site. The frustration for the forensic teams grew as the days passed. They looked for the standard markers of a violent encounter: fingerprints on the door frames, foreign fibers on the carpet, or scuff marks on the floors from someone being forced out of the house. Every single one of these forensic leads came up empty. There were no weapon marks, no dragged items, and no DNA that didn't belong to the residents. Whoever entered that house managed to remove 3 adults from a suburban street in the middle of the night without waking the neighbors or leaving a single drop of blood for the police to find. They left behind a house that was forensics neutral, defying every standard expectation of what a crime scene should look like. The missing women were 47-year-old Sherrill Levitt, her 19-year-old daughter Suzie Streeter, and Suzie's 18-year-old friend Stacy McCall. It was a weekend of celebration. Suzie and Stacy had just graduated from Kickapoo High School the day before. They had spent the night at various graduation parties before deciding to head back to Sherrill's house to get some sleep. Through witness accounts from the parties, investigators established a very tight timeline. Suzie and Stacy were last seen leaving a friend's house at approximately 2:15 a.m. They arrived at the house on East Delmar Street somewhere between 2:15 and 2:30 in the morning. This is the final confirmed sighting of any of the 3 women. The geography of the disappearance makes the timeline even more restrictive. Stacy McCall's own home was just blocks away, yet she never made it there. Her car was found parked at Sherrill's house the next morning, confirming she had arrived and intended to stay. Between 2:30 a.m. and the time the friends arrived that morning, the three women simply ceased to exist in the public record. This incredibly narrow window suggests that what happened was not a prolonged or disorganized event.
To control and remove three people from a residential neighborhood without a single witness hearing a scream or seeing a vehicle suggests the event was carried out with a terrifying level of speed and silence. The search that followed was one of the largest in the history of the state. The Springfield police were eventually joined by the FBI and the Missouri State Highway Patrol. They used every tool available, from organized grid searches to diving teams checking waterways. Thousands of tips and leads were logged into evidence over the next 30 years. Most led nowhere, but in 2007, a specific lead brought the investigation to a standstill. A tipster suggested that the remains of the three women were buried deep beneath the concrete of a downtown Springfield parking garage that had been under construction at the time of the disappearance. Investigators took the lead seriously enough to bring in ground-penetrating radar and excavation crews. They drilled through the concrete and searched the earth beneath the structure. But like every lead before it, the excavation yielded nothing. No remains, no clothing, and no personal items were ever recovered. Even with the application of modern forensic technology and 3 decades of investigative work, the physical evidence in this case has not grown. The file remains as empty of physical clues as it was on the first day of the search, leaving the families with 30 years of silence. Despite the lack of physical evidence, one name has consistently resurfaced in the investigation: Robert Craig Cox. In 1992, Cox was living in Springfield and working as a mechanic. He had a direct link to the victims' families. He worked at the same car dealership as Stacy McCall's father. Cox was a man with a violent past. He had previously been sentenced to death for the 1978 murder of a young woman in Florida. However, his conviction was later overturned by the Florida Supreme Court due to insufficient evidence, and he was released, eventually making his way to Missouri. When the Springfield Three vanished, Cox initially provided an alibi that was later called into question. Years later, while in prison for an unrelated kidnapping, he made a chilling statement to investigators. He claimed that he knew the three women were dead and that he knew exactly where their bodies were located. Despite this admission, Cox has never provided the specific details that would allow police to find them. He has refused to give up a location or describe the events of that night, effectively holding the information hostage while he serves time for other crimes. This creates a legal wall that the investigation cannot scale. Without a confession that leads to a discovery or physical evidence linking him to the house on Delmar Street, police cannot file charges. The void of evidence left at the original scene protects the perpetrator, even when they are sitting right in front of investigators. Today, the case is polarized by 2 main theories. Some investigators believe the women were targeted by someone they knew, perhaps someone with a specific grievance against Suzie or Sherrill.
Others believe it was a random, opportunistic crime committed by a serial offender who happened upon an unlocked door and 3 unexpected victims. More than 30 years later, the FBI still carries the Springfield Three as an active case. Every year on June 7th, the local community in Springfield marks the anniversary, and the faces of Sherrill, Suzie, and Stacy are once again broadcast across the news in the hope that someone will finally come forward. When you look at the photos from that morning, the tragedy is found in the stillness. The purses on the table, the cars in the driveway, and the dog waiting for its owners to come home. Everything in that house was prepared for a Sunday that never happened. Unless the silence is broken by someone who knows the truth, the case will remain what it has been for 3 decades. 3 lives that simply stopped existing at 2:30 in the morning on a Sunday in June, leaving a gap that no amount of investigation has been able to fill.